smoky barbecue sauce in a brioche bun. Get ready for a whole new level of flavor. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Don't watch no face. Just tune in to the Bridge 99 FM. At this right there.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans, by justice. The people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a job. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be.
Welcome to Let's Talk Justice. It is Tuesday, June 20th. I am Jade Williams, Policy and Advocacy Specialist from Jamaicans for Justice.
And I'm Michael Jackson. Happy Tuesday to all our listeners. And as usual, we just want to say thank you for joining the program. And just remind you that we are on social media and you can make your comments known then. And for the second half of the program, of course, you can call into 676-4996 and you can WhatsApp your comments at 239-7583.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So this week we're talking data protection and privacy. And we're going to be having a discussion with Mr. Trevor Forrest of 876 Technologies, also a cyber crime expert. I hope I'm getting his expertise correctly noted. And we also have Mark Green, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Edufocal. And for those who don't know, Edufocal Group is one of those pivotal companies that went online long before online learning was a thing before COVID-19. So again, we thank both the gentlemen, and we're going to be having what I think will be a very good discussion on data protection and privacy.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, as usual, Jade listeners, we're starting out with our review, human rights recap of the week. And there is an instructive editorial in today's Gleaner that says Indicom should seek judicial review. Now, I won't focus on the recommendation being put forward by the Jamaica Gleaner, but what I think is instructive for our listeners to take note of. For those of you who have been paying attention, you would recognize last year, if you remember, in January, JFJ had in fact issued a public statement where there was a police officer making disparaging comments towards an individual, threatening that person with physical violence, which is an assault. There are several other things that shown up on video on social media. The infamous one with the soldier who kicked the lady who was allegedly pregnant down by Denham Town community, I believe, and several others. And though we recognize that the videos perhaps would not show the fulsomeness of what would have happened, what we're concerned about is that the High Command has not seen it fit to indicate to the Jamaican people that X number of police officers, perhaps who would have been seen on these footage online, they were absolved or they would have been subjected to some disciplinary review. Now, one of the things Indicom has been lamenting about for years, and the Jamaica Gleaner editorial made note of it, Indicom, within its purview, would have made recommendations for disciplinary proceedings to be initiated against several officers. Mm-hmm. And to date, the High Command has not seen it fit to say to Indicom that this is what would have happened. And it's very problematic. It undermines public trust in law enforcement, which is detrimental to the officers who want to be empowered to conduct their work without scrutiny.
I think it also undermines the weight that one would put to an INDECOM investigation. Because if at the end of your investigations you are recommending disciplinary action and then none comes forthwith.
Or you don't even know.
Yes,
So transparency is not there. But what is interesting, when you look in other jurisdictions, for example, the United States, which has its own problems. So we're not talking about broad brushed, everything works. But certainly there are things to learn. When disciplinary measures are initiated or concluded, the police state departments do in fact notify not just an INDECOM body, but the public. So the public would have trust that when I make a report, this is the result of it. And for officers who are deserving of exoneration, they would get it. But what is even frightening, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we were all talking about how the expo was very good.
Yes.
We also lauded it from JFJ because you saw the children out looking at the technology. But one of the caution we did note on this very program is that one must ask the question, how many of these technologies have been deployed?
Yes.
And what is the end result of such deployment? And it's instructive again that INDECOM has taken note that they have not gotten the footage from the body-worn cameras, which will aid in investigation. Tell the Jamaican people that when these things happen, police who act outside of the law, they're not acting with impunity. Again, to the High Command, public trust is important.
You know, just anecdotally, one of the things that have come out of some of our sessions with officers, you know, when they levied the criticism that, and it's not just a criticism they levied at human rights organizations, they also levied it at the media.
Yes.
To say that the only time that there is scrutiny on the police force is when it is that it is a concerning issue. And I responded to say, what is concerning for the public as well is that, okay, that might be the case, but there is no official response in many of these cases. Yes. So the public speculation is able to run rampant, and there is no one there to show that there is some, even if it is not fulsome,
but
some
this is
accountability.
The exact reason for the body-worn cameras.
Absolutely.
So when I traveled recently for JFJ's work, one of the best practices, whenever there's a police-involved shooting, the police department itself release the footage, carry on with them press conference, and let you know at the end of the day that this officer, again, exonerated, this one based on the circumstances, they have faced disciplinary measures. Because it's accountability, not just for the public, but for the law enforcement agency itself. So the protection is all around. But we can't have an INDECOM can't get local footage.
Yes, no, I agree.
That is unbecoming. So again, I think JFJ, we're going to be putting forward our proposals in a very structured way, because for years we have been talking about reforming the police, and they have been doing much, much better.
Yes.
You see increased accountability. You see, the police interacting a little bit better with the citizens. I enjoy their social media pages. But with the greatest of respect, when it is that you have these things still happening, because it's not PR thing we're there on now. We're talking about true accountability for the citizens. I think there's much more to be desired.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right. So thank you for that, Mikhail, our Human Rights Minute this week. I'm just going to go quickly into our right of the day today, which speaks to a right under our International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And it talks about our right not to be arbitrarily interfered with in our home or private family correspondence, right? So it says that no one shall be subject to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to unlawful attacks on his honor or reputation, and everyone has the right to protection of the law against such interference or attacks. So that is an international right that we as Jamaicans have. And if for our trivia question today, we ask the question, where is our local right in the same equivalence located? So where can you find the equivalent of Jamaica's right to privacy in the Constitution? What is the exact section? To participate in the trivia, please send us a message on our social media pages or send us a WhatsApp message at 2397583.
Can I do a little double whammy? with this week's question.
Sure.
I would love if someone indicate to us what recommendation they would make to strengthen our right to privacy, if there is any.
Okay.
And we will double the credit this week.
Wow. Okay. Well,
The double
that's
may not
coming from,
result in much though, but
it's coming from the ED. So look out for that extra credits. It's been approved from high up.
we don't have high command in JFJ. All right, as we said, we're doing the topic data protection and privacy. We're going to be joined by Trevor Forrest, CEO of 876 Technologies, as well as Mark Green, the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Edufocal Limited. Now, cybercrime and cybersecurity pose a growing concern for Jamaicans, and this has been heightened by recent prominent incidents of cyber attacks targeting seemingly impervious financial institutions. In 2019, the data showed that banks experienced nearly 2 cyber attacks per week on average. As recently as June 2023, Mayberry Investment was the most recent company who fell victim to ransomware that exposed the personal information of high-profile clients, including government officials.
And just for listeners, ransomware is when the hacked information is held, as the name suggests, at ransom, and the company is required to either pay or their systems will continue to be disabled. But even government systems have not been spared by this kind of vulnerability to cyber attacks. So we can remember in or height of COVID-19, we had the Jam COVID website, which was compromised and exposed the personal information of hundreds of individuals, which would, of course, include their health status as it related to being vaccinated against COVID-19. Even more recently this month, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security had confirmed that the Jamaica Eye closed captioning system that surveilled certain areas in Jamaica had been hacked and prevented access to its website.
Right, so with the passage of the National Identification Registration System, NIRA, your NIDS ID that many people are excited about, with that coming into operations and the Data Protection Act set to come into effect December 1 of this year, we saw some delay by a few months based on previous announcement. Nevertheless, businesses and institutions will be expected to create data protection frameworks. That includes having your data protection officers and that kind of regime to ensure the protection of personal data of their clients. Now, the question is, will the regulation under the Data Protection Act and those that support the NIRA, that is the one governing the NIDS, will it be sufficient to stem the issues arising in recent cases? And will it strengthen our constitutional privacy protection? And what mechanisms will be under these pieces of regulations to ensure that companies adhere to the provisions in law? So we're going to be having the conversation with Mr. Forrest and Mr. Green. Are both gentlemen on?
So, Mr. Green, I believe you are here with us.
Yes, Mark Green is here. Thanks for having me, ladies.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on.
You know, so I just wanted to start out the conversation. Some of the times we talk about data and privacy kind of simultaneously, kind of in exchange for each other. Is there a difference between data protection as we consider it in the legislation and privacy as we might consider it as individuals?
All right. Data protection speaks to, I'd say, the security and the integrity of your personal data and the responsibility of organizations who handle that data to ensure that they maintain a duty of care in how they treat your data. And data privacy speaks to you, the individual, and your rights regarding your personal information, name, address, phone number, any data that can personally identify you, the individual.
Okay. So I believe Mr. Forrest is with us now.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. I wonder, because I don't know if you heard Mr. Green just now, but is there any difference in his explanation that you might have as to what is data protection versus what is privacy?
No, not really. I mean, the only nuance is that data privacy really speaks to how the data is used and handled as it relates to authorized access to the data. That's the only slight nuance difference there, but
Okay.
but I agree with the explanation. Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll continue with you, Mr. Forrest, with the
Before we continue, I think we're due upon a break.
oh, okay.
So, gentlemen, just going to ask you to bear with us until we take a break and return.
Bridge Nation, Bridge 99 FM is having a pre-summer special here on the bridge just for you. Are you a small to medium-sized business, having a sale, or need to get your products and service in the ears of your customers? Give us a call. Let us help you get your products moving. The Bridge Pre-Summer Special is here to help you promote your business, increase customers, build your brand, and increase your sales. Bridge Nation, what are you waiting for? Pick up the phone and give us a call at 876-669-5000. That's 876-669-5000 for the Bridge 99 FM Pre-Summer Special. Conditions apply.
Over 14,000 Jamaicans are living with HIV and not yet on treatment. We want you to know you can live a normal life with HIV. Now is the time to get on treatment. Now is the time to start taking your medication on time, every time. Now is the time for your HIV status to become undetectable. Come to Jamaica AIDS Support for Life. We will help you to reach viral suppression. Now is the time to achieve all your goals and live a long and healthy life. To get on treatment, contact Jamaica AIDS Support for Life at 876-925-0021. A message from Jamaica AIDS Support for Life and the kind support of USAID from the American people.
Last year, Reggae Sumfest was on fire as a host of top-flight Jamaican artists turned out for an unforgettable musical tribute to iconic dancehall producer and prolific hitmaker Dave Kelly. This year, it will be magnificent as leading Jamaican entertainers across generations will come together to honor one of the most influential figures in modern popular music, producer and sound system operator extraordinaire, Lloyd James, the man we have come to know as King Jammy. Yes, it's tribute to the king. Reggae Sumfest 2023, Catherine Hall, Montego Bay, Jamaica, July 16 to 22. You can't miss this. Sponsored by H&L Rapid True Value Flow, Iberia Star, JTV Secrets, Red Stripe, Grace, Magnum, TVJ, and H&L Agro.
King James, play sweeter, stronger, better.
One Jamaica, looking at the bigger picture.
The people's champion. Our mission is love.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We are joined by Mr. Trevor Forrest and Mr. Mark Green, and we're talking about data protection and privacy.
All right, Mr. Forrest, let us jump to you. If you could just outline to our listeners, what are some of the provisions in the Data Protection Act? And when I say provisions now, specifically, what are some of the protection expectations that consumers, citizens can expect from the Data Protection Act? How would it protect us as citizens?
Right. So I think for the first time, the citizen actually has a piece of legislation that allows for them to hold entities or other individuals who keep their data to account, right? The data protection legislation, which is to go into full effect the 1st of December this year, can be encapsulated really in what's called the data standards. There are 8 of them. And when you look at the standards, it kind of gives citizens an understanding of what the Act provides for them. So the first standard is that data can only be processed fairly and lawfully, right? The second one is that you can only collect data for lawful and specified purposes. The next one is that you can only collect as much data as is necessary for the service you're providing. So, like you go to some places and they're asking you for a lot of information and you're wondering as a consumer, why are you asking for all of this? Because none of this matters to the service I'm requesting from you. Well, what happens now is that if there's information that you do not believe is relevant to the service you're supposed to be getting, then you don't have to give it.
Yes.
And they can't refuse the service, right? Another thing is the information that data controllers, which is entities that store data on you, that they have must be kept up to date. Now, this is a dual responsibility between the data controller and the citizen, or what we call the data subject. You must make sure that the information that is stored about you is accurate, and also the controllers must make sure that information is accurate as well. The next one is, and this is a very important one, especially as it relates to cybersecurity and so on, is that companies must ensure that data is safeguarded against unauthorized and unlawful processing, accidental loss, destruction, or damage. Now, this is a very broad standard, because what it means is that companies must now ensure that they mitigate against cyber attacks, data breaches, both externally and internally, because, you know, what you find is a lot of data is really stolen from people who work for businesses, and you would have seen this a lot in the BPO sector, which led to the scamming thing. So measures must now be put in place to ensure that adequate protections are there. In fact, one of the provisions in the law is that whenever a breach occurs, the data controller must report that breach to the Information Commissioner. Now, this Information Commissioner, the Information Commissioner's Office, is a very important organ of the whole data protection and privacy regime, because that office is the office that will enforce and regulate all of these provisions that are in the legislation. In fact, that office is where a citizen's recourse is directed. So if you don't like how any business is treating with your information, if it is that you're wondering how somebody got access to your information. So, for example, you get a text message from some company that you don't know how they got your information, or you never authorized them to communicate with you in this way, or to even share your information. You can tell those companies that, one, do not communicate with me this way, do not use my data this way. And if they don't treat with it in accordance with how you feel it should be treated, you can then go to the Information Commissioner and launch a complaint, and then the Information Commissioner can then, you know, go and audit the company or the business and make sure that they have the right things in place, treating with your data in the way that you expect it to be treated with.
Before we continue, Mr. Forrest, thanks much. Mr. Green, just a question. One of the things when the Data Protection Act was being passed, I remember several organizations had some concerns about how expensive it may be to be compliant. Whether the cook shop down the road would be expected to be compliant in all areas, you know. We heard Mr. Forrest talking about the cyber security measures that you must employ. You must have a data controller within your company. How can companies remain compliant with data protection but still not see it as an expensive venture? That's one of the questions that a listener asks us to pose to you.
And the Act considers the magnitude of the data that each company will need to process. You made the reference to, say, a cook shop. A cook shop may not need to know Mark Green's name, address, telephone number to provide a service. So the level of data that the cook shop will need to capture, store, and manage, process, will be significantly different from what, say, an insurance company needs to process, access, share internally. So the Act does allow for consideration for the magnitude of the data. And just to add, based on the provisions of the Act, key considerations, the data collection and processing. So as I mentioned, the data that the cook shop would collect and process, that volume, quantity, and quality would be significantly less than other larger organizations. The data use and disclosure is a key consideration. So the chef only needs to know that Mark ordered a particular meal. He will serve. He will not store my information as part of his ongoing business. So the requirements on him may not be as onerous or as in detail as larger organizations. There's also a matter of data security. The data that is stored is captured on the individual. There must be measures in place to secure that data while it is in the possession of the data controller. Another key area of the Act is data retention and deletion. So if the data is no longer relevant to the business that the individual has with the data controller, there must be mechanisms in place to delete that data
So,
when
Mr.
it is
Green,
no longer needed.
I wanted to ask you, as someone who has been a part of a pioneering online-based system, I know that in some other countries where data standards were implemented, that's where we started having to accept all cookies versus reject some versus. So is that something that online-only businesses, for example, in Jamaica would have to be considering now? That the Data Protection Act is coming into play? Would it extend to the infrastructure that is on the online system, or does it just have to do with your internal company systems?
Well, it would extend to all points that collect, process, and use individual personal data.
Okay.
So short answer is yes. If a customer or an individual has to interact with a business virtually online and share personally identifiable data, that access via that website, via that portal, must also be compliant.
Okay, I wanted to ask Mr. Forrest. I know that we have several different standards for example, data encryption or transfer of information that is secured. Does the Act or anything surrounding the Act give guidance as to what kinds of systems we're expected to implement? How would we know that the encryption that we're using, for example, is up to standard to what the Act expects us to produce?
Right, good question. So one of the standards that exists in the Act speaks to where data can be stored, whether locally or overseas, right? And when you're talking about securing data, encryption is a very key component of that. International encryption standards are clearly defined, but one of the things that has to be contemplated seriously is this thing called encryption or security of data at rest and security of data in motion, right? Yes. So you have two ways in which data has to be secured. When it's at rest, sitting on a hard drive somewhere or on a server or something, you must implement encryption on that data when it is at rest, sitting on a system or a hard drive, on a computer, on a server, or even on your mobile phone, right?
Sure.
But also, you must ensure that when the data is being moved from one place to another, if you're sending it in an email, if you're sending it via, file transfer, if you're sharing it with other parts of your business, you also have to make sure that in transit the data is encrypted, because the Act speaks very generally to ensuring how data is treated. I believe in the regulations you will get more granular details as to some of the methods that are recommended. But there are international standards for encryption of data, and I think once regulations come out, those kinds of specifications will be referenced. But generally, most of the standards that exist now are fairly comprehensive as it relates to encryption of data.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We are going to take a quick break, and I'll ask you both to stay with us for a few minutes after the break.
The new crispy barbecue stinger from KFC. Get ready for a whole new level of flavor. KFC, it's finger licking good. The time by KFC is
1:30.
I put it down on the wrong one.
Hold up, wait a minute.
On the bridge,
Every Tuesday at 10 p.m.
we talk about the forbidden, the inevitable, the truth. Nothing is untouched. It's live with me, dancehall queen Carlene.
Download the Bridge app, be on the 99, and tune in this Tuesday after dark.
The conversation is intellectual and maybe tantric, but always entertaining as we hear from the expert and you.
SOD, this Tuesday at 10 p.m.
Montego Bay, Jamaica. Caribbean Airlines and Downtown Entertainment present Reggae Sunfest 2023 at the Catherine Hall Entertainment Center with a massive injection of 90s dancehall. On Friday, July 21, don't miss the Boombox segment featuring Harry Toddler, General B, Nitty Kutchi, Tony Curtis, Jigsy King, Silver Cat, and Mega Banter. Get more dancehall energy on Saturday, July 22 in the historic tribute to King Jammy featuring Admiral Bailey, Shaka Demus, Leroy Gibbons, Lieutenant Stitchy, Pictures, Bunny General, Chuck Turner, and Asa Lineage. Don't miss the 30th anniversary of Reggae Sunfest. Get your General and VIP tickets at reggaesunfest.com. Reggae Sunfest 2023, sponsored by Sunshine Snacks, Pepsi, TEF, Half Moon, Regency Blinds, Prime Trust, Sandals, Round Hill, Sea Garden, Deja, Brown Box, and Centurion.
Importers. Shipments requiring you to pay customs duties and taxes are cleared on a customs goods declaration, known as an IM4 or IMS4. Ask your clearing agent to provide your customs declaration, customs assessment notice, and customs receipt once duties and taxes are paid. Where your clearing agent may not be able to provide the IM4 or IMS4, request your customs goods declaration registration number or C number, which can be used to verify your payments. Importers, request your IM4, IMS4, or C number. It is your right. For details, email the Jamaica Customs Agency at public.relations@jca.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
KFC, take it up a notch with the new Zinger. It's got the taste and the flavor, irresistible. Zinger so deliciously, it's on a new level. Crispy barbecue Zinger, love the onion, crisp with the cheddar.
the new crispy barbecue zinger. Delicious Kentucky fried chicken, bacon, cheddar cheese, crispy onions with smoky barbecue sauce in a brioche bun. Available for a limited time. The new crispy barbecue zinger. Get ready for a whole new level of flavor. KFC, it's finger licking good.
The Bridge 99 FM, keeping the Caribbean connected.
The people's champion.
Okay, welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We are chatting today about data protection and privacy with Mr. Trevor Forrest and Mr. Mark Green. So I wanted to pick up with you, Mr. Green, and ask, Mr. Forrest mentioned that you would be able to go to the
Is that
information commissioner to be able to make a grievance as a citizen. So if you do, what are some of the penalties that are under the Act? And are there penalties that you as a citizen and not necessarily a data controller can incur under the Act as well?
All right. Yes. So the Act allows the commissioner to sanction entities who are not compliant with the provisions of the Act. Fines ranging from a couple millions to potential jail time where entities are found non-compliant or there is insufficient evidence that the right mechanisms were put in place to protect customers' data and the privacy of their data.
What is the dollar figure we're looking at and the possible term of imprisonment?
I think the last check was between 2 and 5 million. So it's not a small fine and imprisonment.
It depends how you look at it there, Mr. Green, because one big company will share all of my business potentially, my health status, especially in countries that may have high levels of stigma and so on. So even outside of those demographic factors, you're talking about some serious implications. So I don't know. Go ahead.
That's where the fines start.
Okay.
So yes, that's where we begin, and the Information Commissioner has the authority under the law to take the requisite action based on the impact of any non-compliance. And
I would suspect, and JD can correct me here, outside of the statutory provisions under the Data Protection Act, citizens would be in a position to file a civil suit as well, potentially.
I mean, if they've incurred loss.
Okay.
Yes, they would be able to as well.
Okay. And Jade had asked as well, Mr. Green, the matter of individuals. Could I hold an individual to account, separate and apart from the company?
If that individual has access through business with you, another individual, they can be held accountable as well. Okay. Because they would effectively be in business with you, the individual. They would have access to your personal data, and any misuse or issues that impact the integrity of your data, sharing your data without following the provisions of the Act, will make that individual liable.
Okay, great. Actually, I like that because far too many legislation there passed where employees, yes, the matter of vicarious liability comes into play, but I think far too many times it's a cushion for people not accepting individual liability for their actions.
And just to add on the matter of employees, it's a requirement that each company ensures that all their employees, contractors, partners, vendors are aware of the provisions of the Act and take steps to ensure that that awareness is actually put in place. So as an example, each employee for each company will need to do courses that inform them that these are your requirements as an employee under the Data Protection Act, and this is how you need to operate as someone within an organization who will have access to people's personal data.
And you're both guests, so it's okay. We can do a little PR plug here. So before I get back to Mr. Green, Mr. Forrest, as a cybersecurity expert, JFJ don't have no money, so I won't use us as example. But how can you help companies and institutions and even NGOs at reduced cost? Let me go there, right? To ensure that we're compliant with the provisions under the Data Protection Act. What is your role and the role of others in helping companies train employees and these things? How do you assist?
My company, HM6 Technology Solutions, is one of a number of companies that provide what we call data protection officer services. And what that does is we help businesses, one, to comply with the provisions of the Act, the first main one being registering with the Office of the Information Commissioner. Now, this is a legal requirement as per the legislation. Now, the thing about that is it's a harrowing experience for, small businesses, micro businesses, and so on to go through that registration process. So we've actually partnered to make that whole process a lot easier by putting the entire process online. Oh. So you can actually now go online to our and I would share the URL, but it's a little long. But you can actually go online and fill out a form and go through a process that once it's done, the entire registration form and documents that need to be submitted to the Office of Information Commissioner are done, and it is a very user-friendly process. So that's one thing. The other thing that we do is we do assessments, because a lot of times businesses don't know where they're at and where they need to be compliant. So we help both in legal and technical assessments. And these assessments are normally fixed cost assessments. So you know exactly what it's going to cost you to do this. And our pricing is really targeted at micro and small businesses.
But you're going to put a category for non-profit going forward, I would surmise.
I don't know yet. We haven't contemplated non-profits as yet. It's something that I guess we really have to contemplate.
Please, but I'm joking now, but in all seriousness, you have several non-profit organizations that JFJ, because of the work that we do, others that provide psychosocial support, we collect and store data that perhaps is
So it's something that we're going to have to contemplate seriously, because there are quite a number of them out there.
Yes.
So what we do is we come in and make sure that the technical aspects are up to snuff, and also the legal aspects are where they need to be, so that you because it doesn't matter if you're an NGO or private organization, you are subject to the penalties under the act, and you have to be, I guess, creative to make sure that you're compliant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we have to become creative in the services to make sure that you are compliant.
Yes.
But I think what we're doing now is just trying to get out there to let people be aware of the fact that these are the things you have to do. Mm-hmm. This is how much it's going to cost. What I normally tell people and companies is, in contemplating what the cost of being compliant really is, you need to think about what happens and what the fines are if you're found not to be compliant.
Yes.
Right? And that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of budget and investment you have to make, because the minute all it takes is one customer to complain, and you will find yourself in running afoul of the law, and that's a very costly thing.
Yes. And Mr. Green, Edifocal, based on our reading, you have short course, and you started mentioning that. If you could just indicate to us what you're offering and what people can expect from Edifocal going forward.
So we actually have a strategic partnership that allowed us to create a 4-module Data Protection Act awareness course.
Okay.
And what this is a easy to understand overview of the act itself, the requirements of the business, the individual, the employee, and at the end of this course you receive a certificate. And through our strategic partner, we can also direct you to get an assessment of where you are, where you stand in terms of compliance, and then work with that partner to get you to that point where you're fully compliant. For further information, you can always reach out to us at help@edifocal.com. Easy to remember.
Okay, awesome. So before we say goodbye to both of you, we wanted to do a quick shift in the conversation, because Mikkel was busy telling me how her son used ChatGPT to write an essay. I hope I'm not getting him in trouble.
He was punished for it.
But as we look at, I feel like we are constantly playing catch up in terms of regulating our technological advancement. And as we're now looking at artificial intelligence, one of our concerns is how might this impact our human rights when it comes to the maintenance and protection of our personal data, or even our ideas and creations, right? Because the AI works from learning, it doesn't really create. So what kind of concerns should we be looking at right now? And I ask you first, Mr. Green, but I also want Mr. Forrest to answer as well.
All right. I think 3 main concerns: privacy, worker rights, and bias and discrimination. In terms of privacy, as you rightly said, AI collects a lot of information. It learns quickly and then uses that information. And if the right mechanisms aren't in place, AI can access your information and use it without you providing the level of consent and agreement for its use. First risk. Worker rights. Like any other innovation, AI can impact some jobs. Yes. So it is possible that we may see a shift in some low skill or repetitious tasks. Employees that do those tasks, AI may replace some of those jobs. So there's that risk. And then bias and discrimination. AI learns from what is available. And if some of the data that it has access to is unfair or biased, the output we get from it will reflect those biases.
Yes, I think we've seen at least that last one pretty hilariously already with some of these chatbots and kinds of chat accounts where they start out perfectly normal and within days they start spewing anti-Semitic, anti-Black kind of sentiments immediately. So, Mr. Forrest, what are the concerns that you're seeing with the rapid movement of AI right now?
And should we have regulations put in place?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the question of regulations, I don't think you need to ask that question. Regulations are going to come regardless because it's just going to happen. But I see AI in a number of areas, and I have a number of concerns. I'm going to focus more on security concerns. And what we're finding is AI is playing an increasing role in cybersecurity and defense, right? Because what AI facilitates now is the ability for threat actors to more rapidly evolve the malware and the threats that they create, right? So what you find now is that cyber threats are evolving at a rapid rate and becoming way more sophisticated. So now AI on the other side, the defense side, has to respond and be used in an interesting way. Now, one of the most intriguing aspects of that is you all know that AI uses large data sets to learn and then produce an outcome. What's interesting and oftentimes overlooked is those data sets that AI uses are prime targets for threat actors.
Okay.
And here's why. If I can influence or taint the data that AI uses to learn, then I can control how AI functions. So if I can tell AI to use bad data, then I will get bad outcomes.
Yes.
Correct.
And one of the things that means now is we have to pay very close attention to securing the data sets that AI uses to learn. Right? Because if you don't do that, then what you're going to have is your son writing essays that output bad information. And if you do not have an understanding of the information that should come out, and this is where we talk about over-reliance on AI.
Like those attorneys overseas that go and quote some laws, case law that didn't exist.
Exactly. You will start to get rampant hallucination of AI because what happens is it is only outputting what it's asked, and if it's doing that from bad data, then we have a very, very serious problem to consider. So that's kind of where I would put. I mean, along with what Mr. Green said, I mean, the ethics, the bias, and the privacy, those are some, key things that we have to look at. The EU is currently looking at AI laws now, and they're taking a risk-based approach to it. But I think regulations are going to come because they simply have to when you're looking at a technology that's evolving as rapidly as this.
Yeah.
I just had one other
We're actually up on the break. We have to go, so make it quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, one of my concerns as an individual, I'm friends with a lot of creatives, and we've mostly been talking about the language model version of AI. But there's also like DALL-E, which is an image generator, or, Mid-Journey, right? So it's like they take artistic work as well, and what can we regulate copyright in that sense, so I mean, there are lots of concerns for us to think about. We're on the break, so I won't take it much further than that. I want to thank you both for joining us for the show today, and hopefully we can have more conversations about data protection as we get closer to the Data Protection Act. So thank you again, and we're on the break.
Absolutely. Thanks for
All right,
having
bye-bye.
us. Yes. All right.
Hi, I'm Ronald Thwaites, and I'm the host of The Public Eye and The Open Mind on The Bridge 99 and Irie Jam in the tri-state area. This program will tell you the truth about life backyard. Fair, open talk, no gossip, no slander. We want to listen to your concerns, also want to help you with your problems in JA. We at The Bridge rate you and affirm our oneness as citizens of this blessed land we love. So join us now on Wednesdays on The Bridge, crossing the waters, linking Jamaicans and Jamaican lovers everywhere.
Reggae Sumfest celebrates its 30th stage in this July. Reggae Sumfest, the greatest festival on earth, will be bringing the energy and vibes. Kicking things off Sunday with a family fun day, followed on Monday by a street dance. Tuesday, the all-white party blitz, and Wednesday, the all-black fashion statement. Closing out Thursday with the global sound clash, and then all roads lead to festival nights 1 and 2, with performances from Chronic Law, Kabaka Pyramid, Valiant, Morgan Heritage, Tommy Lee, Richie Spice, Ja Vinci, Tanya Stevens, Massacre, and many more. Reggae Sumfest, the greatest festival on earth. Get your tickets now at reggaesumfest.com. Our music, our festival.
Link a change the remittance scheme. Get money from abroad in a blink with Link. Collect your money, gram transfer straight to your phone. Anywhere you're dead 24/7. No crowds, no lines, no hassle. We're talking about that new clothes, groceries, back to school, money. The start of
Importers. Shipments requiring you to pay customs duties and taxes are cleared on a customs goods declaration, known as an IM4 or IMS4. Ask your clearing agent to provide your customs declaration, customs assessment notice, and customs receipt once duties and taxes are paid. Where your clearing agent may not be able to provide the IM4 or IMS4, request your customs goods declaration registration number or C number, which can be used to verify your payments. Importers, request your IM4, IMS4, or C number. It is your right. For details, email the Jamaica Customs Agency at public.relations@jca.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
One love, one art, one Jamaica. On the Bridge 99 FM.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. I just want to say that we have a winner for our trivia questions. Our trivia question today was my apologies, was where in the Constitution would you find Jamaica's equivalent to the right to privacy? And the correct answer is in Chapter 3 at 13.3J. And the winner was Roxanne on Instagram. So look out for your prize at a later time.
All right. One of the things that happened last week, which is very distressing when you look at where we're coming from with young Daniel Rowe being killed in that brutal manner which she was. We heard another incident happening where a Mason would have raped a 6-year-old child. Now, it is something that really strikes us all as Jamaicans, and I think the immediate reaction for some people, life, death penalty, And we get it, because it is certainly shocking to know that an adult, rape in and of itself is atrocious, clearly. But an adult male and a 6-year-old young girl, it is disheartening, to put it mildly. But I think as we wrap up the program today, one of the things that we have been calling for at JFJ is both preventative measures as well as stronger laws when it comes to vulnerable groups.
Yes.
So we have our submission extension on it when it comes to the increase in penalties, mandatory minimums. But for JFJ, we have been making the call, and we're going to be putting it in our submission to Parliament, that while we don't believe that there should be a one-size-fits-all model for mandatory minimums, certainly Parliament must review the laws that say when rape and other atrocious, brutal crimes involve our most vulnerable groups, children, those with intellectual disabilities, certainly those should be seen as aggravating factors where the starting point for their sentence cannot be the same for everybody.
Yes.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all model that we're saying, let's increase and impose. But we're saying that there has to be a signal that this is among the most heinous of crimes, and therefore the starting points ought to be a little bit greater.
Yes.
And to add to that, we're not just asking for stronger laws, but I think we also have to ensure that the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, coupled with the National Family Parenting Commission, or the National Parenting Commission rather, more public education campaign must be employed so that parents are aware of the risk and measures to mitigate things such as these.
Yes.
Because I don't want the family to be listening in and think we're saying you're to be blamed. No. But I think we ask the question, we cannot leave our children with strangers. When we're taking the bus, no put your pitney in a big man lap. And I say it in that manner so we can understand that we have to be cognizant of the risk as parents. We don't know people. And even so, when my son was younger, he was taught things like the safety circle within the household. Mm-hmm. Because a number of rape offenses, it involves those who are closest to us. The uncles, the cousins, the next door neighbor.
And I remember you're one of the first people I've heard say it, but not to encourage your children to
no uncle and auntie.
Assign familial bonds with strangers. So you're calling someone who is essentially a stranger uncle and auntie, kind of.
It lowers the barriers.
Yes, and it gives an implicit trust that the child may feel safer around this person who they should be more discerning around. So yes, it is a double call. It is firstly, let us strengthen our framework. And as Mikhail said, it's not just about the laws. You can't legislate everything. I don't remember where we were the other day.
You can't.
And we heard that phrase, not everything can be legislated. So, there's
something should be regulated.
Yes.
So like the school bus system and so on.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of things. I can't fathom little babies taking bus so early to go to school. So we're just calling on the government. These things have resource implications. But I tell you, some cost, we have to be looking at what cost we're weighing that does not entail money.
Yes.
So let's protect the nation's vulnerable children a little bit more. Right?
And thank you so much for joining us this week for Let's Talk Justice. We'll be back next week at the same time, so Tuesday at 1 p.m.
My name is Mikhail Jackson, Executive Director.
And I'm Jade Williams.
Walk good. Enjoy your Tuesday.
The people's champion. justice for all. Justice and the law. Justice, Jamaica the known. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Jamaica, make it a better place for the boys and girls. Create equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
Hey, yo, you know it's Bounty Killer, checking out Bridge 99, bridging the gap. The bridging will never stop.
Bridge Nation, Bridge 99 FM is having a pre-summer special.